If these three things happen, TCU will blow out North Carolina for a second year in a row. Oh, yeah, it's Locked on Horned Frogs. Play my music.
You are Locked on Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? I'm Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day every day, and I'm especially excited because we have football tomorrow. If you don't know, maybe you weren't an everydayer last year. On Fridays, we do 3 matchups that will dictate this game. 2 storylines to look out for and 1 key to victory. And this is our first Friday of the season where we actually have game action the next day. So let's roll it. The number 1 matchup to watch for is North Carolina edge rusher Melkart Abou Jaoude. That is the name to watch. And if TCU can take him out of the game, if they can make him a relative non-factor, this is going to be one of the 3 things I believe will contribute to a blowout victory for the second year in a row. On yesterday's episode with Isaac Shade, I said there will be no luck of the Irish for the Tar Heels, and I stand on that today, and I'm actually willing to get even more bold than I was yesterday. I'm predicting at least a 14-point victory and possibly a larger margin if these 3 things happen. Number 1, Melkart Abou Jaoude. He is the lead edge rusher. He's the star player on this North Carolina defense, and he plays edge. I talked about it yesterday. He plays edge, and that is a position in which you can absolutely take over the game. At the end of the day, if a team has a phenomenal edge rusher, that can lead to them winning the game. This is not hyperbolic. This is not, I'm not going to say it's not rare. It's regular enough to where you see an edge rusher change a game because he can change an offensive game plan. He can disrupt the way that you pass the football. If he's a stout run defender, you don't want to run his way. Absolute game changer in a way that other premier positions simply aren't other than quarterback, right? Offensive tackle, as great as they are, I don't think they are changing the game like an edge rusher would. They change the game a lot, but not like an edge rusher. A wide receiver, I don't think changes it like an edge rusher because they are so dependent on the quarterback. Cornerback, not changing it. And I would argue they're largely dependent on the edge rusher. This guy, Abou Jaoude, had 10.5 sacks last year, but I find it extremely interesting the way he amassed those sacks. The way he got those sacks was in a bunch. And I think that tells 2 stories. So number 1, when you have Abou Jaoude, he had 3 sacks against Virginia, 2 sacks against Syracuse, and 3 sacks against Stanford. That was back to back to back. Those are 3 games in a row. And over that 3-game span, he had 8 sacks. Let's please remember he had 10.5 on the season. So that means 8 of his 10.5 sacks came in 3 games. There's more. Then he had another game earlier in the year against Richmond in which he had 2 sacks. So now 10 sacks in 4 games. He did give me 1 more, or half a sack, really. He got to the quarterback 1 more time to give me half a sack in the season finale against North Carolina State. So now when you're looking at it, sacks against Richmond, Syracuse, Virginia, Stanford, and NC State. That's 5 games. 10.5 sacks sounds great. You get a 10-sack player. I've been begging for TCU to have a 7-sack player this year. You get a 10-sack player, that's phenomenal, but you got to look at how it's accumulated. And the way that it's accumulated says he's not that consistent. At least he wasn't that consistent a year ago. He played TCU last year, only had 1 tackle. So when you're looking at Abou Jaoude and you're looking at his ability to get to the pass rusher, you know he's talented. The fact that he has 10.5 screams talent. The fact that it was largely condensed over the course of 3 to 4 games, depending on how you want to look at it, it tells you he's not consistent throughout the entirety of a season. The fact that 3 of those games equaled 8 sacks and they were all consecutive tells you he really hit a hot stretch. But for a large part of the season, he was quiet in the sack department. So TCU, having Ben Taylor Whitfield, and now this is the matchup, right? Ben Taylor Whitfield and whoever the right tackle is going to be. We don't know that right now. That's one of the things that TCU is staying extremely quiet about. But whoever the other tackle is, they have to be ready for Melkart Abou Jaoude, because Abou Jaoude is a player who's going to play on the left side. He's going to play on the right side. And with one of the best players on his team being the left tackle, it wouldn't surprise me if Bill Belichick says, hey, we're going to put him on the right tackle who doesn't have a lot of experience, whether that's Killian Registe, whether that's Witten Van Hoy, right? Like whoever it may be. I mean, the guy making his first start seems like the player I'd want to put my best pass rusher against. So we'll be watching. Maybe there'll be more tight end help on that side. It's a push and pull. This is football. This is how we do it. I'm going to try to get the best matchup. You're going to try to stop me from having the best matchup. If I know my best edge rusher, or your best edge rusher in this case, is going up against a lesser experienced, though talented, there's a lot of belief in the talent, but lesser experienced offensive tackle, I'm going to do everything I can to mitigate the impact of your best edge rusher. This is football. The second one is TCU's defensive line versus North Carolina's offensive line. And one of my favorite things about this part of the season is when you're going up against a team, we get to talk to the experts every single week. We don't do this during basketball season. During basketball season, there's not TCU's going to play North Carolina. Let's get a crossover going. Maybe every now and then we'll do it for a big game, but I don't think I did any crossovers for the entirety of TCU's basketball season. It's just not something we necessarily do as a network because of the frequency of the games. But in football, we get to see and we get to talk to the experts from Locked On Tar Heels in this case. And one of the things that Isaac said is that North Carolina's offensive line is a question mark. Same for TCU's defensive line. And so often we break down defensive line as just pass rush. We don't really talk about the run game. And I get it. Pass rush and getting after the quarterback in the passing game, that seems to be all the rave, and that's what everybody wants to talk about, so much so that the latter tends to become a bit of an afterthought. People don't really talk about stopping the run as much until your defense is getting gutted like a fish repeatedly, down in and down out. Then we're starting to talk about where's the run defense. But the interior defensive line for TCU is really stiff, and they're bringing back people. Right? Like you're bringing back players that you trust. And I'm looking at Ansel Dimba to be a player who could be a breakout guy. I don't want to name him that because I don't want to throw that term out to everybody. I want to be a little bit reserved with it. But I think Ansel Dimba is a player who could really take a step up from where he was last year. We know he's a good run defender. We know he can penetrate through the offensive line. I think he can do that and get after the quarterback. But as far as a guy like on North Carolina, running back Juju June, yes, this is not a stutter. His name is Juju June, right? And then you also have LSU transfer Caleb Jackson. These are guys who, one was the leading rusher in June. And then the second one is Jackson, who comes over, and there's a lot of hype about what he could be. We were talking to Isaac about that yesterday as well. If they're going to want to run the football, and one of the strengths of the defense, one of the more experienced rolling over aspects of the defense is their interior defensive line and their ability to stop the run. When you include Paul Oyewale in that mixture, yeah, that feels like a really good part for TCU to take advantage of. Then you obviously have the passing game. And I just want to see somebody pop out. I just want to see somebody be a pass rush threat, whether it's John Schobel, whether it's Paul Oyewale, whether it's Corin Hayward, whether it's Zach Chapman. I think, I could be wrong, but I think they said Chapman's going to be good to go for this game. Well, I have to watch. But regardless if he is or he isn't, maybe I'm misremembering at the moment. But this is a position, the stud position, where you have multiple players who can make an impact, who need to make an impact, because this is extremely important. And I want to see them get after this quarterback. I know it's North Carolina. I know they have a question mark, but the pass rush is a question mark as well. So it's not as if you're eating against a team that's just too low below you. These are two question marks that could both be good, could both be bad. But I don't care. As long as on Saturday in Dublin, the TCU pass rush is the good one, that's all we can ask for until we get deeper into the season. The last matchup is TCU versus TCU. And this isn't to be cliche, but I truly believe when Sonny Dice gets to talking about week 0 in this case, but we really just being season openers, you don't know a lot about a team. So when you don't know a lot about a team, you just have to focus on what it is you need to do. For TCU, run the football. For TCU, protect the football. For TCU, stay balanced, stay disciplined on defense. There's going to be a moment where they try to get you with some sort of misdirection, with some sort of, hey, keep your eyes over here. And it's going to happen every game, but who knows? In season openers, people tend to try to be larger with these displays. But at the end of the day, TCU is going to have to go in there and play their game. They don't know what Bobby Petrino is going to do with North Carolina's offense. They expect a lot of vertical passing. That's what Jamel Johnson said this week. They expect vertical passing, but who knows? Maybe with Billy Edwards, they do try something different. Maybe that's not necessarily the game that Petrino wants to play this time. It'll be interesting because there's so much unknown. Speaking of unknowns, that is one of the biggest storylines. And I think I have my next thing that needs to happen for a blowout. It is Jaden Craig acclimating to the P4 level immediately. Let's get into that as we continue with Locked On Horned Frogs. Today's episode is brought to you by Lorene Co. And Lorene Co. is known for its enamel supporting gum, but now they are launching a nicotine-free pouch. Lorene Co. pouches are designed to provide clean focus while supporting enamel at the same time. Each pouch contains 50 milligrams of caffeine plus L-theanine and alpha GPC for smooth, steady focus without energy crashes. And because it's a Lorene product, every pouch also contains nanohydroxyapatite, and that's the mineral teeth, it's the mineral teeth are made of to provide daily enamel support between brushes. Lorene Co. pouches are pouches that swap out the nicotine and give you clean focus and support your enamel the whole time they're in. They come in mint, cinnamon, mango, making it easy to find a flavor that fits into your daily routine. Listen, give Lorene a try. Right now, Lorene Co. is offering our listeners up to 50% off at buylorene.com/lockedoncollege. That's buylorene, BUYLARENE.com/lockedoncollege for up to 50% off. Today's episode is also brought to you by Wayfair. Support for today's episode comes from Wayfair because when it comes to refreshing the house, maybe I want to get some more purple because it's football season. I want to get some more TCU purple to don in my living room as I watch the game. Go to Wayfair for that. It's easy, right? Like whether it's been furniture you're putting off or things that's just spur of the moment, they have everything you could possibly want and need for a style budget aspect. You can shop furniture and decor across a wide range of price points with quality materials and prices designed to stand up to real life. And with Wayfair, verified product specialists hand vet select products through a 10-point quality inspection, looking at things like materials, functionality, features, and even how long it takes to build. If you're still trying to narrow down what to buy, Wayfair gives you plenty of real shopper feedback to work with so you can browse through the 20 million verified 5-star reviews. It's just up to you. Join Wayfair Rewards today and get 5% back on every purchase and start saving on your next home upgrade. Head to wayfair.com to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On Horned Frogs, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day and making us the #1 sports podcast in the network or in the country. I thank you for that. I truly do. When you're looking at TCU, the biggest storyline should be how fast can Jaden Craig get up to speed at the P4 level? There should probably be no bigger storyline in this game. There's no bigger storyline in the season than Jaden Craig and his progress. But when you're looking at this right now, this is Craig's first P4 action. I've said it before, I'll say it again. If Jaden Craig looks just like he did at Harvard, if he performs just like he did at Harvard, TCU will have one of the best offenses in the Big 12, and Craig will be one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12 and will boost his stock significantly for next year's NFL draft. Now, what that looks like in game one is probably the most fascinating part. That's probably the most fascinating part of it all because there has to be a starting point. And we've talked about this in theory for months. Since Jaden Craig has come over from Harvard, we've talked about what an acclimation period would look like. What bumps would he have to take? How fast does he get through the acclimation period? But what if there is no getting up to speed for Craig because he's already all gas, no brakes with it? What if we're talking about a quarterback who's experienced at Harvard, smart guy, has been practicing with TCU for months, and that was the acclimation period? What if we're talking about a guy who just simply was playing at Harvard, but not a product of Harvard? What if we're doing that? Because if that's the case, in week 0 in this case, the season opener, Jaden Craig looks like he's meant to play on a power 4 level. TCU will blow out North Carolina. Because TCU's biggest question, not just against the Tar Heels, but in the entirety of the season, is what does Craig look like? I talked about this with Drake Toll. We're going to have an episode that comes out later today. I wanted to do it yesterday, but I felt like we already had 2 episodes dropping on the network, so I didn't do that. But we talked about this. TCU needs an elite quarterback. I think the amount of teams that they're playing that have great quarterback play, the Frogs need it too. So with that being the case, what does Jaden Craig look like in week 0 is a big storyline because it's going to define how we feel about Craig moving into week 4, right? Week 5, 6. When we get into BYU time, we're going to want to have a good idea of who Craig is. And this is one of, probably 2 games before that. I don't think there's going to be a huge judging him based off of Grambling or Arkansas State. But nevertheless, this is going to be something that is monitored year in, year out. Part of that's going to be protecting the football because Craig is going to have to do that at a high level. He's going to have to protect the football. Part of that is going to be noticing the speed. And you got Bill Belichick, who, for everything we can say about him, he is a great defensive mind. Maybe his coaching doesn't translate to college. We'll see. This will be probably the year that tells you whether or not it does. But we will never break down and talk about Bill Belichick's defensive resume as if he is not a genius on that side of the ball. So with Craig going into his first P4 action, he hasn't played no P4 teams. Going into his first P4 action, it becomes a situation where I don't know. Like it's uneasy. It's uneasy because you're going to need the poise to deal with a Bill Belichick-led defense. And I think he's going to call it the defense. The second thing is just blocking out all the drama, man. And it feels like right now TCU can't get out of it. Everybody knows by now. It's well documented, the Jacob Fields situation. And what sucks is this was avoidable. Not on the TCU side, but on the reporting side. And I say that as somebody who came out and reacted to this story time after time, each step of the way. But whether the resolution of the story I doubt, will outweigh it nationally. It's still something that people are talking about. It's still something that people are going to discuss and just have conversations of, hey, no, it didn't happen that way. But it's still talked about. It's still going to be yapped about. I'm sure in the pregame show, they'll talk about some of the drama that had to deal with Jacob Fields. Dozie Ezukama, per Horned Frog Blitz, is not traveling with the team. That is part of the story. That is part of the story. So when you look at it, it's just constant chatter, constant discussion. And then you get the Fort Worth Star-Telegram part of it. Now, you are going to hear an episode with Drake Toll. It's going to be a crossover. And I know I said that I wanted to wait, but I kind of regret it because when we talked about this, Drake and I, when we talked about this situation, the Star-Telegram hadn't put out that hit piece on Sunday Dykes. And now that's another level. So TCU took away the Star-Telegram's credentials altogether. Not just a writer, right? Like they took the entire credentials away. I don't personally agree with that. I thought that the paper did a good job recorrecting and redirecting. That's me personally. I thought they came in and said, hey, we have new sources closer to Fields who says this is not what happened. I mean, I guess you didn't write a full out retraction, but I thought they corrected themselves. Me personally, I thought they were responsible. Things happen. Sometimes sources aren't reliable and mistakes happen. It was a mistake, right? I thought they updated the story quick enough and in a timely fashion to where taking away the entire paper's credentials, I didn't feel like was necessary. I hope that this gets resolved. You hear this tomorrow. But at the time, the Fort Worth Star Telegram had not put out the piece about Sonny Dykes. And that personally is just going to make things worse, in my opinion. It's just going to make things worse. It's just going to be more talking points. Now I feel like the paper feels like it's a burnt bridge. Screw it. Let's burn everything too. I think that's how they're kind of operating. And it's not Steven who wrote the piece, for the record. For those who maybe didn't see it and don't want to go look, let me be clear, it wasn't Steven. But I think the thing is just, I've been following Steven since I've jumped on this beat. And I feel like he's done a great job. So I am very supportive of the work that he's done for the Star Telegram. I'm supportive of the way he's covered the team. I think it's been fair. I think it's been balanced. And the fact that he had a mistake here, I don't think he should have had his credentials stripped. But I hope that all sides end up, finding some sort of middle ground or finding some sort of peace. No middle ground. It happened. And I hope they just get a conversation rolling, because I think he's too good of a journalist to be sidelined like this in because of this, But yeah, all of that's there. All of that's there, man. And everybody's sitting here and talking about it. And it's not lost on people. I'm sure there's students and athletes and coaches who have relationships with Steven and the Fort Worth Star Telegram. And it's just unnecessary chatter. And I just hope that TCU is able to balance that, because as you go into Dublin, it's a lot of things that are going to knock you off your normal programming. You don't want more distractions. This isn't sleep schedule. This isn't playbook. This is just chatter that could take away from what you are doing. So it's about balancing it. You can't go back and retroactively give him his credentials and everything's fine now, but it's just about balancing where you were or where you are with everything that happened. So hopefully TCU is able to do that. And I think that's a storyline to watch. If it feels like they aren't necessarily sharp, that'll be something that I won't come on here and talk about fully, because that takes too much assumptions. But it is something that I'll be thinking like, man, I wonder if mentally some things are just on their mind, whether that's the dismissal of Jacob Fields, the health of Dozie Azukama, the relationship they may have with certain reporters. I'll just think it a little bit. So hopefully they're able to balance it and it doesn't look like any of these things happen. I got one key to victory. It's simple. It's plain. Win up front on the offensive side of the football. That's the third thing TCU must do in order to secure a blowout. Let's get into it as we continue with Locked on Horned Frogs. Today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. If you've got a sweet tooth the way that I do, you know how tough it is to find that perfect treat without all the sugar. That's why Cotton Candy 5 Hour Energy Shot brings that nostalgic flavor back in a whole new way. Look, it's that classic cotton candy taste that you remember from when you were a kid. And if you're still indulging your inner child, you're probably remembering it from last week. But this time it has a tasty caffeine boost and zero sugar. It's quick, easy, and a way to satisfy your sweet cravings while keeping things simple and on the go. Listen, I haven't been able to have cotton candy since I was a kid. This brings back all the old memories from my childhood. So I absolutely love it. I can't be eating cotton candy all day. I'm trying to save my teeth, right? But this is a perfect alternative in my mind. I like how convenient it is too. Small, portable. You just take a shot. I can grab with me, and it's a little pick me up on the go whenever I'm having a little bit of a downtime, or I know I'm going to have a busy morning. I want to make sure I get through smoothly. Bring on the sweetness with Cotton Candy 5 Hour Energy Shots, available online now at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. Today's episode is also brought to you by Poncho, and let me tell you about Poncho. If you're like me and you're basically living your game day wear, I have to keep myself from coming on every episode, Dawn in the purple. But me personally, when it's game day, I like to wear it. Poncho allows me to feel like I have something I could wear on game day, when they're in Dublin, when they're in the Carter, when they're on the road, or maybe it's just a Wednesday and I want to show people that I low-key got some style, and what I'm representing is TCU. It just looks clean, sharp, and like something you'd actually want to wear, not just wearing it because it has a logo on it. Hate that. Never the case with Poncho. And if you buy a shirt Before September 7th, you're covered by Poncho's Natty Back Guaranteed. If your team wins the national championship, the college football national championship, Poncho will give you a full refund on your purchase and you keep the shirt. And what I really like is it's not a one-size-fit-all substitution or situation either. Regular, slim, tall, short sleeve, long sleeve, have it all. So go to ponchooutdoors.com/locked-on. That's ponchooutdoors.com/locked-on and enter your email to get $10 off and free shipping on your first order. Head there, drop in your email. $10 off, free shipping, PONCHO outdoors.com/locked-on. Get one and you'll see why I have a closet full of them. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked on Horned Frogs, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. Now, making all the way to segment 3, and I thank you 2 times for that. We're in preseason form, but we're in regular season content. This is interesting because, to me, the biggest key to victory, I've already laid out the 2 reasons for a blowout, but just to win, let's stay modest for a second. If TCU wants to win this game versus North Carolina, they have to win up front. The one guy I laid out that the Frogs absolutely have to stop is Melkart Abou Jaoude. And with that being the case, guess where he plays? On the defensive front for the Tar Heels. Abou Jaoude is an edge rusher for North Carolina. If that's the key player, it makes sense that the key to victory is winning up front. But it's not just about Abou Jaoude. It's not just about stopping that pass rush. It's about the fact that Gordon Samus, being the offensive line guy that he is, which makes him so unique as far as offensive coordinators go, him being the offensive line guy that he is, I want to see who's playing up front. And also, if they're able to maul North Carolina, we're talking about a completely different scenario than just being okay. Right? Like we're talking about a much different scenario on the offensively, period, than maybe a lot of fans are thinking. I know people say, oh, North Carolina isn't that good, TCU should do it. But TCU has to be good too. It's not just a one-sided thing. You don't blow, every bad team doesn't just get blown out all willy-nilly, right? Like it's hard to blow a team out. But if you're able to dominate up front, you're able to activate your running game. You're able to keep Jaden Craig clean. You're able to do all of these things. It unlocks everything for you. And I know it sounds a little cliche, but it's the first game of the season. One of the battles is TCU versus TCU, staying disciplined, just doing the things you're supposed to do. We don't know enough about these teams right now. But one thing we do know is that the new aspect for TCU is their offensive line. And I'll throw this little extra tidbit in there. I'm really interested to see who plays. If you go to TCU's, website and you go to the media center, they don't have a 2 deep right now. I didn't see it in their game notes. But what you do see in those notes, is they kind of have a starting lineup laid out, but it's just based off who started. So Ben Taylor Whitfield is at left tackle and right tackle. Why is Ben Taylor's 14 starts on right tackle? Is there a chance that maybe he plays on the right side? I don't know. He has left guard starts too. So like maybe it's nothing. But Cooper Powers has his starts on, or Jaheim Buchanan has his starts at left guard, but not at center. Nobody's listed at center. It's just interesting to me. But at the end of the day, this is less about why they chose to do what they did on their website and more about the fact that the offensive line has so many unannounced decisions. Their decisions have been made, I'm sure of it. And it may be some split time. Who knows? But who's going to be that left guard? I mean, I have an idea. I kind of assume it'll be Cade Bennett. But Ryan Hughes has been playing there as well. Maybe Hughes takes it. Who's going to be the center between Jaheim Buchanan and Cooper Powers? I feel confident in saying Noah McKinney will be the right guard. But sometimes I think because of his status he came in with, it seems like he's running pretty unopposed. But like in general, we just kind of chalk him up as, yeah, he's definitely going to be the guy. Maybe there's a little bit of competition there or not as long of a leash. And then right tackle, is it going to be Killian Registe? Is it going to be Witten Van Hoy, right? Like these are questions that we don't know the answers to. But those questions extend everywhere. That's the little extra tidbit I want to close out with. You dominate up front is going to help everything you do. And there's not much to really go on about. That's basic football. If you win at the offensive line, you will run the ball better, we will see a big game out of Jeremy Payne. If you block better in pass protection, Jaden Craig has more time to survey the field. More time to survey the field means more time for the wide receivers to get open. More time for the wide receivers to get open means less of a chance that the offense or that the cornerbacks can just stick these guys, right? Like that's a thing that's going to change. So more protection, it's a wholesale impact, right? But at wide receiver, who's playing? We know Jordan Dwyer's playing. I think we're pretty confident that Ed Small is going to play. But then my other question comes in, is it Terry Shelton? Is it Jeremy Scott? Jeremy Scott seemed to be coming on a lot stronger as of late, dusting off some of the rust. Is that going to be the starting wide receiver trio, so to speak? I thought that Dykes spoke pretty highly of him. I thought he spoke pretty highly of him when talking about what Scott's able to do from a skill set standpoint. But maybe it's Shelton, who was a darling of spring practice. I think Dozie Ezukama, as unfortunate as the circumstances are, could fall behind in this depending on how a player performs against North Carolina. It sucks. It's terrible. It's out of his control, but it's also something that could happen. Scott could come in and rip it up. And all of a sudden, he's going to be your ex, right? Like, I think that's a conversation to be had. But it's so many question marks, man. It starts with the offensive line. It extends out to the wide receivers. I have question marks on who's going to play the stud most of the time. I'll look for the stats or the position snaps on that. It'll be fascinating. It'll be fascinating. There's big time question marks as far as Gil Jackson goes. I could do a whole nother episode on players to watch before the game, but that's just something to monitor. These are the question marks. Who starts on the offensive line? Watch out for that and watch to see if these numbers stay constant. In the meantime, in between time, I won't see you in Dublin, but I'll see you here after the game. Until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care. Stay blessed. Peace.